It's the last week of July, and right now, in garages and sheds all over the country, gardeners are packing away their tools because they think the season is basically over. That is the single most expensive mistake you can make in your entire gardening year. Because while everyone else is giving up, there is a narrow secret window right now in the next few weeks where you can plant 12 specific vegetables that will hand you a second harvest, a fall harvest, that is often sweeter, crunchier, and more productive than anything you grew all summer. Miss this window even by 2 weeks, and you are looking at empty beds until next spring. So stick with me, because number 7 on this list is one almost nobody plants in August, and it is the one that fall gardeners swear is the biggest missed opportunity of the whole year. By the way, one bad planting mistake can cost you years. Avoid it, get the guide below. I put together a complete planting guide that walks you through exactly when, where, and how to plant, so you're never guessing again. It covers soil prep, timing charts for every zone, and the exact mistakes that kill fall crops before they even sprout. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to grab the full guide before this window closes. All right, let's get into it, because the clock is genuinely ticking here. The reason August planting works, when most people assume it doesn't, comes down to one simple fact about plant biology. Cool season vegetables don't just tolerate the cooler weather of fall, they actually prefer it. When the days start to shorten and temperatures drop from scorching to mild, a lot of vegetables slow down their growth just enough to concentrate their sugars. That's why fall carrots taste sweeter than summer carrots, why fall spinach is more tender, why fall kale loses that bitter edge entirely. You are not fighting the season anymore. You're working with it. And because the soil is already warm from months of summer heat, seeds germinate faster in August than they do in the cool soil of early spring. It's honestly one of the best-kept secrets in vegetable gardening. So let's break down the 12 vegetables you need to get into the ground before August ends, starting with the one that catches almost every beginner off guard. Number 1 is spinach, and here's the twist most people don't know. Spinach actually struggles in the heat of summer. It bolts, meaning it shoots up a flower stalk and turns bitter almost overnight. But sow it in August, and you're planting it right as the conditions start turning in its favor. Spinach is a heavy feeder, so before you drop those seeds, work some compost or a balanced fertilizer into your soil. Sow the seeds about ½ an inch deep, spaced roughly an inch apart, and keep that soil consistently moist until germination, which usually happens fast in warm August soil. Once seedlings appear, thin them to about 3 inches apart, so they're not competing for nutrients. The real magic happens as the weather cools. Spinach becomes noticeably more tender and less bitter, and because it's frost-hardy, you can keep harvesting it using the cut and come again method well into late fall, sometimes even under a light dusting of snow. Miss this planting window, and you're stuck waiting until next spring for that fresh spinach taste, which, if you've ever had store-bought spinach in the dead of winter, you know is simply not the same. Number 2 is radishes. And if you only plant one thing off this entire list because you're short on time, make it this one. Radishes are famously one of the fastest maturing vegetables that exist. Some varieties are ready to pull from the ground in as little as 25 to 30 days. That means even if you're planting in the final days of August, you can still realistically get a harvest before the first hard frost hits in most regions. Give them loose, well-draining soil with a pH somewhere between 6 and 7, and make sure that soil isn't compacted, because radishes need room to swell without fighting through dense clay. Full sun is ideal, though they'll tolerate a bit of shade. The mistake people make here is treating radishes like an afterthought crop, tossing a few seeds in a corner and forgetting about them. But planted in succession, meaning a small new batch every week or so through August, you can have a rolling harvest of fresh, crisp radishes with that satisfying peppery bite clear into the cooler months. Skip this one and you're leaving one of the easiest, fastest wins in the entire garden on the table. Number 3 is kale, and this is a vegetable that genuinely gets better the colder it gets. Kale is famously hardy, And here's the part that surprises people: a light frost actually makes it sweeter. The cold triggers the plant to convert some of its starches into sugars as a natural defense mechanism. So that slightly bitter raw kale taste you might not love in summer mellows out beautifully once temperatures drop in fall. Planted in well-draining soil that's rich in organic matter, aim for a pH between 6 and 7.5, and give it full sun to partial shade depending on how intense your late summer heat still is. Kale planted in August will be maturing right as the nutritional density of leafy greens tends to peak, giving you a superfood harvest at exactly the time your body could use those nutrients heading into the colder months. If you skip planting kale now, you're not just missing a vegetable, you're missing one of the few crops that genuinely rewards patience and cold weather instead of punishing you for it. Number 4 is broccoli, and this one requires a little more strategy than the others, so pay attention here. Broccoli genuinely prefers cooler temperatures to form those tight, dense heads you're picturing. If it gets too hot while forming its head, it will bolt and go straight to flower, which ruins the harvest. Planting in August times it perfectly, so the head development happens during the cooler weeks of fall. Give it fertile, well-draining soil with a pH between 6 and 7, full sun, and consistent moisture, because inconsistent watering is one of the fastest ways to get small, disappointing heads instead of the big ones you're hoping for. The mistake most first-time fall gardeners make with broccoli is planting too late, since it typically needs a decent number of weeks to mature into a proper head. So if you're serious about broccoli, get it in the ground on the earlier side of this August window, rather than waiting until the last possible week. Number 5 is Swiss chard, and if you want a vegetable that basically refuses to quit, this is it. Chard tolerates both heat and cold remarkably well, which makes it one of the most forgiving vegetables you can plant in August, especially if you're not sure exactly how your local weather is going to behave over the next few months. It thrives in well-drained, fertile soil with a pH around 6 to 7, and does well in full sun to partial shade, which makes it flexible for gardens that don't get perfect sun exposure all day. What makes chard special for a fall harvest is that you can keep cutting the outer leaves continuously for weeks, sometimes months, and the plant just keeps producing more from the center. It's essentially a vegetable that gives you multiple harvests from a single planting, which is exactly the kind of efficient, low-effort, high-reward crop you want when you're trying to maximize a shrinking growing season. Number 6 is lettuce, specifically romaine and butterhead varieties, and here's something that trips people up. Lettuce planted in the peak of summer heat often turns bitter and bolts almost immediately, which is why so many people think their lettuce growing days are over by August. In reality, August is when you should be starting your next round. Use loose, fertile soil with good drainage, a pH between 6 and 6.8, and give it full sun to partial shade, actually leaning toward more shade if your region is still running hot in early August. If the heat is intense when you're planting, consider starting seeds in a slightly shaded or protected spot until they establish, then let them take over as temperatures drop. Lettuce grows fast and matures quickly, meaning you could be harvesting fresh, crisp salad greens again within just a matter of weeks, right when most people assume their lettuce season has already ended for the year. Now here's number 7, the one I mentioned at the very start, and it's the crop that fall gardening veterans consistently say is the most overlooked: cauliflower. Most people don't even think about cauliflower as a fall crop because they associate it with spring planting, but cauliflower genuinely prefers developing its head during cool, steady weather without wild temperature swings, which is exactly what late summer into fall provides. Unlike the wild temperature roller coaster of spring, where one hot week can ruin your cauliflower heads, fall gives you a slow, steady decline in temperature that lets the plant develop evenly. Give it fertile, well-draining soil, a pH around 6 to 7, full sun, and don't let it dry out. Cauliflower is notoriously sensitive to inconsistent watering and will produce small, uneven heads if you're not careful. This is genuinely one of the biggest missed opportunities in fall gardening. because so few people even consider it an option, which means if you plant it now, you'll likely have one of the most impressive and least common harvests in your entire neighborhood. We're at the halfway point, and before we get into the second half of this list, let me pause here for a second. Stop wasting money replacing dead fruit trees and vegetable beds that fail because of timing mistakes you didn't even know you were making. Get the complete guide below. It covers zone-specific planting calendars, exact soil requirements, and troubleshooting for every crop on this list and more. Scan the QR code on screen now while it's still fresh in your mind, because this window closes fast and you don't want to be figuring this out by trial and error. Number 8 is carrots, and this is where a lot of gardeners get the timing wrong in a way that costs them a full harvest. Carrots planted in late summer for a fall harvest actually tend to develop better flavor than their spring-planted counterparts, again thanks to that same sugar concentration effect that happens as temperatures drop. The key here is soil. Carrots need loose, well-draining soil free of rocks and heavy clay, because compacted soil is the #1 reason people end up with short, stubby, forked carrots instead of the long, straight ones you see in the store. Work your soil deep, at least a foot down if you can manage it, before sowing. Carrots are also a fantastic storage crop, meaning once they mature, you can actually leave them in the ground under a layer of mulch and pull them fresh well into the early winter months, giving you one of the longest harvest windows of anything on this entire list. Number 9 is beets, and this is a genuine 2-for-1 vegetable that a shocking number of people don't fully take advantage of. Beets give you both a root harvest and a greens harvest, and the greens themselves taste remarkably similar to their close cousin, Swiss chard, meaning nothing goes to waste. Plant them in well-drained, sandy loam soil with a pH between 6 and 7.5, full sun. And like carrots, they thrive in the cooler temperatures of fall, developing sweeter, more tender roots than a summer-planted batch. The mistake to avoid here is planting too densely. Beets need a bit of space to properly swell underground, so thin your seedlings if they come up crowded. Roasted, boiled, pickled, or even baked into a dessert, beets are one of the most versatile vegetables on this entire list, and an August planting sets you up for a harvest that lasts well into the colder months. Number 10 is turnips, and if you want a crop that is almost stupidly efficient for how little effort it requires, this is it. Turnips are dual-purpose just like beets, giving you both a root and a set of edible greens, and they mature remarkably quickly compared to a lot of other root vegetables. They want well-draining soil rich in organic matter, with a pH between 5.5 and 6.8, and they genuinely thrive in the cooler weather that August planting sets them up for. Turnips can withstand a real chill once established, meaning they're one of the more forgiving crops if your region has an unpredictable early fall. The biggest mistake with turnips is simply forgetting they exist. Most gardeners default to carrots and beets and skip turnips entirely. But a fall turnip harvest, especially the young, tender roots, is genuinely one of the more pleasant surprises you can get from a low-maintenance crop. Number 11 is bok choy, specifically the baby varieties, and this one deserves way more attention than it gets in most fall gardening conversations. Baby bok choy is a fast grower, often maturing in just 30 to 40 days, which makes it an excellent choice even if you're planting later in the August window and feeling like you're running out of time. It also handles light frosts noticeably better than a lot of other leafy vegetables, which extends your realistic harvest window even further into the fall. It thrives in fertile, well-draining soil, consistent moisture, and full sun to partial shade. The reason this crop deserves a spot on this list is speed combined with resilience. You get a legitimately fast harvest without sacrificing cold tolerance, which is a combination that's genuinely rare among vegetables. Number 12, closing out this list, is garlic, and this one works a little differently than everything else we've covered, so listen closely. Garlic isn't planted for an immediate fall harvest the way the others are. Instead, late summer into early fall is when you plant garlic cloves that will establish a root system before winter, go dormant during the cold months, then explode into growth again in spring for a harvest next summer. If you skip planting garlic now, you are essentially giving up an entire year's worth of garlic before you've even started. Break apart a bulb into individual cloves, plant them pointy side up, about 2 inches deep and around 6 inches apart, in well-draining soil enriched with compost. Garlic wants full sun and doesn't like competing with weeds, so keep the bed clean. This is the ultimate long-game vegetable on this list. The payoff isn't immediate, but the gardeners who plant garlic in late summer are the ones harvesting huge, flavorful bulbs next year, while everyone else is scrambling to find good seed garlic in spring, usually paying way more for way less. So there you have it, 12 vegetables that prove the growing season is absolutely not over just because summer is winding down. Spinach, radishes, kale, broccoli, Swiss chard, lettuce, cauliflower, carrots, beets, turnips, bok choy, and garlic. Every single one of these has a window that closes soon, and once it closes, you're waiting until next year for another shot. The gardeners who understand this timing consistently get more food out of the same amount of space for less money than the ones who pack it in after summer. And before you go, I want to leave you with this. Don't wait 5 years to realize you planted the wrong thing at the wrong time. Learn it the right way. Get our complete guide. It has everything from this video plus detailed zone maps, spacing charts, and troubleshooting for problems before they even show up in your garden. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to grab it, because this fall planting window is closing fast, and the guide is the fastest way to make sure you don't waste a single week of it. If this helped you rethink what's still possible in your garden this year, get outside, get your soil ready, and get planting. Because every day you wait between now and the end of August is a day of growing time you don't get back. See you in the next one.